Hey, it's Mr. Leatherwood, and I'd like to go over a problem-solving strategy that we're going to use this year, and it's commonly referred to as U.P.S.E. U.P.S.E is going to stand for Understand, Plan, Solve, and Explain. So we're going to be explaining this strategy to our students, and we're going to start in this Understand block. And in this Understand block, that's when we're going to read the problem, we're going to underline the question, we're going to circle any information we're looking for, and we're going to cross out any information that we're not going to need. We're also going to show our problem with numbers and pictures, maybe objects. We may have them build with manipulatives on their desk. So this understand portion is extremely important when they're solving a problem. But we're going to break apart the problem and kind of write down everything that's important about that problem. Then we get to our plan strategy. This is when we're going to write down our operation. Are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? What's our method? Are we going to find the difference? Are we going to find the sum? We're going to write a number sentence. So if we're doing 5 minus 3, we're going to say 5 minus 3 equals blank. And then our process is when we get kind of technical, we say we're finding the difference between 5 and 3, or we're finding the sum between 5 and 3. And then we may also write down some sort of strategy like drawing a picture, looking for a pattern, guessing and check, etc. Then we go down to our solve. This is when we actually work out the problem. We're going to write out our number sentence, or we're going to use whatever strategy we like to use to complete this problem. We're going to work it out, we're going to circle our answer, and then we're also going to check our work here. So if we added to get the solution, we may subtract to double check our work. Or if we used the number sentence 5 minus 3 and got our answer, we may draw some pictures to check our work. So this solve is where you're actually doing the meat of the problem. And then the evaluator, the explain, is when we're going to go back and we're going to write a sentence. We're going to say, I subtracted 5 minus 3 because, and then we're going to write some sentence to explain our thinking. This is often an overlooked step, but a very important step for problem solving. Be able to justify your answer and make sure that it really makes sense. So you're not just doing the math, you're actually thinking about the problem and figuring, does this make sense in the whole scheme of things? Let me give you an example. This is a beginning, first week of school problem that we have in 3rd grade. It says there are 5 big dogs at the pet show. There are 5 little dogs at the pet show. There are 7 cats at the pet show. How many dogs are at the pet show? So I'm going to give you a little example of how we're going to do this. So we would draw our little U.P.S.E chart, our U.P.S.E. And first thing that we do is we read through it, and then we're going to underline the question. So I'm going to find the question, and I'm going to underline it. How many dogs are at the pet show? Doesn't really talk about this in U.P.S.E, but I really like to maybe circle or underline specifically what we're talking about. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the sentence, or go through the problem sentence by sentence, and we're going to pick out information that we think is important. So for instance, there are 5 big dogs at the pet show. Well, if I look back at the question, it says how many dogs are at the pet show. So I think that's important. So I'm going to circle 5 big dogs. When we get to the second one, there are 5 little dogs at the pet show. Well, still looking at dogs, since the question says how many dogs are at the pet show, so I also feel that that's important. Then we get to the third sentence, there are 7 cats at the pet show. Well, that's not important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that information. I don't want to ever look at that information again because in the realm of this problem, it is not important. Then I can also draw some pictures in this understand, or maybe write some information that I think is important. So maybe I draw 5 big dogs, for instance. And then I come back and I say, oh, there's 5 little dogs too. And I could draw actual pictures if I want, but I try to tell my kiddos, draw something simple. Don't worry about your overall details in this step. Then I'm going to go over to my plan. And in my plan, there are going to be four bullet points that I'm going to tell all my kiddos to start with. My first one is my operation. So it says, how many dogs are at the pet show? Well, I think we're doing addition. So I would have my kiddo write addition. And then I go to my method. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to find the sum. Or I may say I'm going to add 5 and 5. Let me get a smaller pen here, sorry. So I'm going to add 5 and 5. Apologize for my handwriting today. The next one is going to be my number sense. So if I'm going to add 5 and 5, my number sentence would be 5 plus 5. I don't know the answer yet, but I'm going to put a little equal sign and then maybe put a box for my answer. Okay, when we get a little closer to algebraic thinking, we may start putting variables there. But for right now, a box is fine. And then my process, I'm going to say, I'm going to find the sum of 5 and 5. And that's all I need in my plan. I could draw a picture here, I could look for a pattern, or I could at least talk about those things. I've run out of room here, but when we're in the classroom, we'll have a little bit more room to write. So you could draw, maybe talk about what your plan's going to be and this and that. So then I get down to my solve, and I want to actually work out the problem. Now it can be as simple as doing 5 plus 5 equals 10. I could draw pictures to do it. If I had counters on my desk, I may see a kid solving it that way. And then I also want to check it. So my first thing is to solve it. My second thing is to check it. So maybe I say, well, I think my sum was 10. So if I have 10 and I take away one of these 5s, if I did that properly, I should get a 5. And it looks like I did. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to explain my thinking. And so I try to explain to my kids is, I want you to write a full sentence here. I added 5 and 5 because, and then this is where they're going to write their explanation. So I would ask them to go ahead and write a full sentence and work that out for them. So this is just an example of what you could do for your U.P.S.E process for this problem. Let me give you one more just as an example. We'll go a little bit faster. So this is a little bit later. I think this is third or fourth week. And you'll notice it's using a particular strategy in this problem. It wants you to use a strip diagram to help organize the information. It says there were 15 doves and 5 sparrows sitting on the fence. Then 7 doves flew away. How many doves are still sitting on the fence? So I'm going to go through again, and I'm going to underline my information. How many doves were still on the fence? So I'm underlining my question, and I always like to make a big deal about what we're talking about is doves. Now I'm going to go through each sentence, and I'm going to see what's important. There were 15 doves and 5 sparrows sitting on the fence. Well, I only want doves, so I'm going to circle just the doves portion. Then I'm going to go to the next one. Then 7 doves flew away. Well, 7 doves, so that seems to be important. I may also go back through the sentences a second time. There were 15 doves and 5 sparrows. Well, that 5 sparrows is not important, so I'm going to strike through that information. That way it doesn't confuse me. That 5 just disappears. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Then 7 doves flew away. That's all important. How many doves are still sitting on the fence? And in this case, they want us to use a strip diagram. So again, I would write my U.P.S.E chart, or just split my paper into 4s, or whatever free space I have if I'm taking a test. In my understand, I've already done all the information up in the problem solving, but I may, like I said earlier, maybe draw a picture. So I have 15 doves. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And 7 doves flew away, so if I was doing this problem, I would go back and maybe cross out 7. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then maybe circle what was left. Okay. You may think this is kind of solving the problem, but it just gets us started thinking about it. But you're exactly right. Using this strategy could help a student solve the problem as well. So then I'm going to go to my plan. I'm going to have my bullet points. And if you remember, we're just going to look up here and it's going to tell us what to do in that bullet point. I need to write down my operation. So in this case, I think I'm subtracting. And for my method, I'm going to subtract, let's see, 15 and 7. Or maybe a better way here, let's write it a little bit better way. Let's say, since we're subtracting, let's subtract 7 from 15. In my number sentence, I'm going to do 15 minus 7 equals my solution. And then I'm going to find this time the difference between, we'll say 15 and 7. And again, I'm kind of doing some shorthand here. On a student's paper, they'd be able to write a little bit better. And then to solve it, we have our strip diagram up here. Or we could do like we did earlier and just do a traditional number sentence. So we have our total here. We have one of our parts. And so to find out our other part, to find our answer, we're going to subtract our total minus our parts. And then we're going to get our answer. And once we get our answer, then we can go back and double check it. So we think our answer is 8. So to check it, since we subtracted, I'm going to do that inverse operation or that opposite operation. And I'm going to say 8 plus 7 and see if that equals our original number of 15. And it does. And so then on our explain, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, okay, I decided to subtract 7 from 15 because, and then they would write their explanation. Try to get them to write in a full sentence always when they're talking about math. So this is just a little intro video into what we're going to be using this year. I hope this was helpful. Thank you. Have a good day.